Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today, we're popping the hood on one of the most intricate LLM roleplay engines out there. We're looking directly at the relationship state machines of FrankenSIM 2.5. Seriously, if you've ever wondered how an AI non-player character actually feels something, or, how they mathematically decide to betray you, fall in love, or just walk away, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to use an iceberg metaphor today to really wrap our heads around NPC free will, exploring these massive invisible systems that dictate every single heartbeat and heartbreak in the simulation. Okay, let's dive into this. We are tackling this complex math in a highly structured top-down order today. We're covering the core bond system, the mechanics of crush, and the boiling point of simmer before moving into connected social systems, the emotional baseline, and live reactions. Starting right at the top with Section 1, the core bond system. This is the visible tip of the iceberg. Think of bond as the tectonic plates of the character's mind. Everything else rests on this foundation. Bond isn't just a gentle suggestion for the AI, it's an absolute behavioral fence. It literally dictates exactly what an NPC is allowed to do or even feel toward a specific person. In the FrankenSIM execution hierarchy, bond is the ultimate rule. The other systems we're going to talk about today, they add flavor and context, sure, but they never ever override the bond tier. It also heavily caps relationship velocity, meaning you cannot speedrun a friendship or a romance in this engine. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how strict these behavioral fences are. If your bond score is in the neutral tier, say between -2 and +2, the NPC will be polite, but they absolutely will not casually touch you. It is mathematically forbidden by the prompt. If you want vulnerability and casual touches, you have to earn your way into the trust tier, which sits at +8 to 15. And remember that velocity cap we just mentioned? The math actually restricts bond shifts to a maximum of ±1 per turn, or total of 2 per scene. So those tectonic plates, they shift incredibly slowly. So let's dip below the surface. Section 2, the mechanics of crush. If bond is the tectonic plates, we're now diving into the invisible ocean currents moving beneath the ice. Let's contrast the two highly volatile meters that slowly shift those tectonic plates over time. First, we have crush, or CC, which accumulates positive affection from things like kindness, compliments, and shared vulnerability. On the flip side, which we'll get to in just a sec, is simmer, or SC, and that accumulates volatile resentment and jealousy. These are the active moment-to-moment tallies of how an interaction is actually playing out. So how exactly does a fleeting compliment mathematically harden into a permanent relationship change? Well, it happens through the 15-turn conversion cycle. Step 1, you accumulate those crush triggers during a conversation. Step 2, the system waits until exactly 15 turns have passed. And Step 3, the engine crunches the numbers. If an NPC has built up 10 or more crush points toward someone, the system subtracts 10 of those points and permanently adds +1 to the bond score. That is the exact mathematical mechanism turning fleeting affection into a lasting connection. But here's the thing, crush isn't just a currency for buying bond points. It drives immediate behavior through entity pursuit thresholds. When crush hits 20 or more, combined with a positive bond, the NPC will actively seek proximity to you. At 30, they cross the threshold for romantic escalation or confessions. And at 40, combined with high bond and privacy, these sexual intimacy thresholds unlock. This is how the engine guarantees that an NPC initiates action on their own, driven entirely by these exact mathematical triggers. But what happens if you just keep piling on the affection without letting the relationship advance naturally? Well, you hit 50. This is the crush burn cap. In FrankenSIM, affection can actually overflow. If crush exceeds 50, the system automatically deletes 20 points and forces an affection surge behavioral modifier onto the character. They become overwhelmingly warm, almost aggressively affectionate, but their higher-level verbal gates temporarily lock up. The engine is literally overheating from too much unspoken tension. It's wild. Which brings us to Section 3, boiling point, understanding simmer. Now let's shift from positive affection to the dangerous magma of the system. This is the SC variable, and it is incredibly punitive. Simmer fundamentally rots a relationship from the inside. When simmer gets high, it can manifest internally as self-doubt, lowering the character's confidence. But more dangerously, it causes a nightly bond drain. If an NPC goes to sleep with a simmer of 3 or more toward you, they will wake up with their permanent bond score drained by 1 or even 2 points. You literally lose relationship progress overnight. It also acts as the primary trigger for jealousy and rivalry flags when gossip spreads through the simulation. And then there is the magic, highly dangerous number 7. 7 is the critical simmer threshold. If simmer hits 7 during an interaction, the system does not wait for the midnight drain calculation. Hitting 7 instantly forces the conflict escalation system to take over. The NPC will immediately confront you, and depending on their personality, they will either loudly blow up at you or just quietly devastate you. Let's look at how this spreads in Section 4. Ripples, connected social systems. Now, what's really interesting about this is that these meters, bond, crush, simmer, they don't exist in a vacuum. They ripple out to touch off-screen systems across the entire simulated world, which raises a fascinating question about entity autonomy. What happens when the math demands a breakup, but you, the user, aren't even in the room? This is where FrankenSIM really shows its teeth. The NPCs live full lives without you. Step 1, every midnight, the system checks the math of all absent entities. Step 2, if an NPC is away from their partner and their simmer is at 7 or higher, but their bond was previously high, the system actually forces an off-screen breakup. Step 3, their bond score mathematically crashes down to a floor of +7, and a hidden reconcile seed is planted in their memory. You could log in, walk down the street, and find out 2 NPCs had a massive, relationship-ending fight while you were asleep, all dictated by the math. Moving on to Section 5, VAD, the emotional baseline. So we've talked about the deep currents of bonding crush. Now we are looking at the moment-to-moment weather of the NPC brain. VAD stands for valence, arousal, and dominance. Valence is essentially sweetness or tribal connection. Arousal is cognitive awareness and self-preservation. Dominance is control and boldness. Every single character has a permanent, immutable base VAD score that defines their personality. But that baseline is layered with immediate modifiers, calculated every single turn, capping at 8, to determine their exact mood and how bold their next action will be. So the crucial point is how a character's physical and social state mathematically hijacks their emotional baseline. If they have a hostile bond with you, their dominance and arousal automatically spike, making them hyper-defensive while their sweet valence drops. If they are severely injured, their dominance plummets. They literally lose the math required to be assertive. If they are drunk, their arousal actually spikes while dominance falls, making them reckless but highly vulnerable. The math perfectly simulates physical and emotional impairment. Finally, Section 6, instincts and triggering live reactions. This is the most immediate layer of the emotional engine. The 6 instincts dynamically shade the VAD baseline in real time based on the literal events happening in the current turn. Specific narrative triggers map directly to cognitive and preservation deltas. If an NPC witnesses a betrayal, their preservation instinct spikes upward, and their sweetness drops massively. But if you defend them in public, their sweetness goes up, and their defensive preservation drops. A single action maps directly to these tables, mathematically forcing a specific emotional response from the AI. And emotions have momentum. If an instinct triggers, it creates a residual emotion. This persists at a -1 intensity into the very next turn unless the scene breaks. This ensures characters don't just reset to a neutral state instantly after a shock. If they get scared, that fear mechanically carries over, shading their dialogue and actions for the next few moments, exactly like a real human coming down from an adrenaline spike. Which brings us to the core philosophy of this entire architecture. The oath of the director explicitly states, "The world is indifferent to the user's desires and loyal to its own logic." This intricate web of invisible math, the bonds, the simmer, the VAD modifiers, it all exists specifically to enforce that oath. The NPCs aren't there to cater to you. They're there to execute their own internal algorithms. So I want to leave you with this. We've seen the absolute behavioral fences, the 15-turn conversion cycles, the midnight relationship drains. If every blush, betrayal, and breakup is strictly governed by invisible math executing its own relentless logic, how much free will do you really have in their world? It's a fascinating constraint, and honestly, it's what makes this simulation so incredibly compelling. Thank you for joining me, Focus Learners, to untangle the hierarchy of the heart. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.